Hello, my name is Duran Inci and I'm the CEO at Optimum 7. I have Grizelle De Los Reyes with me.
That's correct, yes.
And we met probably 5 years ago. And I did a workshop for Florida International University, and Grizelle reached out, saw a press release about that workshop that we did for another professor, and wanted the same thing for her own class and her own program. And that was 5 years ago. And after that, we developed this relationship, and now we are working together with the program.
Yeah, the Global Strategic Communications Creative Track Program.
Correct.
And we're going to get into a little bit into explaining what it is, but that's a formal name of the program.
Okay. The reason that we wanted to do these video series is because I think we have something here in terms of execution that we are able to provide a lot of value for students and also for the program, and we're going to talk more about that. So Grizelle, would you like to say a few words about the program?
Absolutely. First of all, the program, as we mentioned, is a partnership between Florida International University and one of the professional schools that is considered one of the best or the best portfolio school in the world. And basically they measure that based on awards that their graduates earn. Based on that, like I call it a crown jewel. It's really a magnificent program, and we're gonna get into the crux of it. But technically, you are right. I mean, I saw a press release that your company had written about this workshop that you had done to one of my colleagues. And I know that you wanted to give back to your alma mater because you're an FIU graduate, but you're actually producing content to promote Optimum 7, and it worked because I caught wind of it as director of a program. And first of all, there's so much to talk about in this topic, but one of the things that I saw that was very interesting, and that was my first go-to knee-jerk reaction, was I want that for my class. I think that anything digital, is so important because, as you know, you're in the business more than I do. This field changes on a second basis. Yes. So I wanted that for my class, but then as I started pondering a little bit more, and we started, in this conversation about what Optimum 7 did, the light bulb started going off because I wasn't working with anybody at the time. So that's where I saw the opportunity to hire a digital agency. And why a digital agency and not a full-service agency? That's where you start, understanding who your target audience is. As I tell students, and I teach a class called media planning, so you have to go through every platform. I said, it doesn't work for us to put a billboard on a highway like other programs do, or do, a radio commercial or a TV commercial, because this program is 50% international, if not more, because it's so unique. So the only tactic that seemed logical was going fully digital. So this is where we started talking about what you could do and for us, and we formalized a relationship in a contract, and it's been, I think, close to 5 years. We're trying to figure out how long it's been, because it started with the workshop, and then we went to formalize a relationship where now I'm a client. But I think that trusting a vendor, and again, this trust came as a result of seeing you in action, telling the students and working with students. So you have a charisma, imparting a topic that it can be a little bit daunting, when you talk about that digital stratosphere. So that's when you start developing trust that these people know what they're talking about, and they have results to boot. And so it was not an immediate thing that we walked into a contract. So it came out of trusting that Optimum 7 was doing the right things for the right people and with the right soul, I guess, because it's not about taking the money and running, because then that's a short-term relationship. So I think that's where we started. And now I know that we're going to talk about the thing that we have built that I truly believe that this goes beyond the contractual relationship
Yes.
that we have, client, vendor, because now we're creating something, and we're going to get into the details, but we're creating something that is truly, you know, educational, real world, you know, and maybe that's a good segue,
Yes.
you know, to start talking about that
Yes.
specifically.
Yes. So at Optimum 7, we have about 35 employees. We have multiple locations. Our challenge, or my challenge as the CEO, was finding talent. And as I talk to other business owners, they have the same challenges, because it's very, very hard to find experienced talent regardless of who you're hiring for, or what position you're hiring for. So who we usually hire, we hire copywriters, marketing specialists, and we hire developers, back-end and front-end developers. So in the Miami area, we were having difficulty finding this talent. I worked on building relationships with Florida International University, University of Miami, Miami-Dade College, to try to acquire students and train them. And my biggest pain point was not having that talent, you know, ready to go day one, start working on projects and start working on clients. And as I looked into building relationships for that, I realized more and more that, unfortunately, the whole education phase for anything that has to do with digital, and I would put marketing there, copywriting, I would put development, any kind of creative position or creative track, your specific program, there were a lot of big gaps between students graduating and actually starting to provide value for a company. And we started discussing with Grizelle, you know, we were trying to address multiple problems. Of course, we need to make money. Grizelle needs to promote the program. But at the same time, we were thinking, okay, what can we do so that Optimum 7 can benefit from this, not from a monetary standpoint, but from a standpoint of maybe acquiring talent, and how can, lastly, how can we provide value for students so we minimize that gap between graduation and actually starting to work for somebody. And as Grizelle stated, the biggest challenge that's going to take place in the next 5 to 10 years is you could have a freshman enter college, go through courses, learn a couple of things, and then by the time they graduate, whatever they learned in the freshman class is going to be obsolete. And this is a real challenge and real issue for the higher education industry. And we specifically created this program, and we think that, we created it, so we think that it's great, but there are different indications of what's happening in the program. Maybe Grizelle, you could touch on that.
And actually, you know, that's one thing that, and particularly when you're talking about digital, but we're going to talk about exactly what we're doing, is try it out. Mm-hmm. You know, you start looking at the opportunities. Where are the opportunities? So you know, I came into, you know, teaching with 30 plus years worth of career. So for me, it's either do it well and do it big, or pack it up and go home and go do something else. Correct. So I always have the best interest of my students, our students. You know, that's the focus. You know, mm-hmm. My students are my clients, so mm-hmm. I have to treat them, you know, with the same level of respect. And not only that, giving them a value proposition, mm-hmm. you know, for the money they're paying for Correct. In tuition. So anyway, as we started developing, not only the, you know, because again, let's take a sidestep mm-hmm. and understand what are the services that you're providing us. Correct. Because then that basically piggybacks mm-hmm. into what we're doing mm-hmm. with our students and the way that we're teaching mm-hmm. Certain aspects of digital marketing, mm-hmm. you know, with our students in mind. What Optimum 7, the part of the services that they're providing is content marketing. Mm-hmm. And in content marketing, you can probably explain Sure. this much better, is basically producing content mm-hmm. so that we're found on the web. And obviously, you know, this is more of a longer wick. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not an immediate result. It's something that you have to be patient in order to start seeing, results. So as we were thinking about the services that you're providing to me and to Florida International University and to the program, we started thinking, okay, how do we produce this content? And again, it's a combination. It's a combination of your copywriters and your team producing content, writing the articles and so forth. But it also, the more that we thought about, we're like, okay, who's the audience here? Well, the audience is a student. It doesn't matter if they come from a non-creative educational background, because they do have to have a bachelor's degree in order to apply and be admitted to the program. But so the common denominator that ties all of these applicants and inquiries is that they're creative.
Correct.
They can come from an engineering background, a medical background, or strictly an advertising bachelor's degree or a marketing bachelor's degree. So we have them in all kinds of buckets. So technically, when we admit these students, they're the ones that went to that Google search or whatever search engine they use. They put very specific keywords and they found us. They found us on the web. And that's how the inquiries kind of start, coming in. And this is where you kick in and you create the content and the content strategy that we've been executing for the past 4 or 5 years. So as we're thinking, okay, how can we, if the students, my students, are the ones that not that long ago were in that Google search looking for us and they found us, how can we incorporate them into this content generation process? And this is where the idea started sparking, because then I came out to you and I said, Duran, why don't you come? Remember when you did that workshop for our students? Why don't we start doing that workshop specifically for the classes that I'm teaching? And the class that I'm teaching is called Creative Strategy. But obviously, my students are students that are copywriters, art directors. Now we added 2 more specialties in strategy and social media strategy. So how can you come in and give them a workshop? But then it evolved from there. It was not only the workshop, it's, okay, how can we incorporate them in the content generation process? Because again, not long ago, these were the students that were on that search engine looking for the program. So who better guided, and we're going to talk about the process, but with guidance, how can they get involved in writing pieces that is appealing to somebody like them? And maybe you can explain a little bit more how this works, but that was the big idea, the big concept.
Yes. So when we originally spoke and we thought about ideas to increase the prospect student enrollment, we thought that content marketing would be the best fit, because that's what prospect students are doing. They're going to Google, they're searching for ways to improve their career, to make more money, to learn more, and to be more effective in their lives for their for whatever they want to, for whatever field they want to work in. And from there, we sat down, we said, okay, content marketing. What do we need to be able to do this content marketing? We said the first thing we need is content. And content is very hard to write. We have in-house copywriters, but nobody's going to write content like the actual person, owner of the business, or the director of the program, or actually the students that are in the program. And as we were discussing the best way to execute this marketing strategy, we thought about what better way to produce this content than to assign it to actual students, because they went through this entire sales cycle where they were looking for information and they were looking for a program that will advance their careers. And they found the program, they applied, they went through the whole application process, and now they're in the program. Then that wasn't enough, because as we discussed more, we were like, well, we need to teach, or we need to show the students how this actually works in the background. Why we create content, the concept of content, how does Google index content, why is it important? And this all goes, it ties back to so many different places. It ties to marketing, it ties to sales, it ties to technology and how Google algorithm works. It ties to the fact that average user now has only 5.5 seconds of attention span to be able to decide to buy, to move forward, or to click the back button. So we started doing the workshops more often with the students, and we created a process where we not only discuss marketing or digital or the creative aspect, and that's where we started getting the attention of the students, because they actually learn the whole process in the background of what happens before the big brands or the big companies or even the smaller companies put out content out there, put their brand messages out there. We reviewed social media and social media policies and how they all come together. Now, how is this different than an internship? Is because you are in the classroom environment and you are providing the very foundation or the infrastructure to the students so that they can understand the actual content building strategy from a technical level, technological level, from a marketing level, and from a creative level. And that's why we are so excited about this, because we actually found a way, I think, that we could make higher education real-time education. What do you think?
No, absolutely. And, it's my own philosophy, and maybe we can get to how the program works, but my personal philosophy as I started teaching, and I always say that I'm not an academic, I'm a professional that teaches, but it's always that challenge on learning by doing. It's very different, and maybe this is where sometimes academia can be seen as archaic, because you're basically sitting in a classroom, listening to lectures, and you don't know how that's going to apply to your field. And again, you need, in a program, you need the two sides. You need the theoretical side and you need the practical side. And actually that basically mirrors the way faculty at universities look like. We have faculty that is on the academic side. Those are the ones that are researching, publishing in academic journals, and then you have the professors like me that we come from the professional side, so we basically have our foot in the industry and and so forth. For me, the challenge has always been that I am practically full-time at FIU, even though I have side work that I do, and sometimes my morning meeting becomes my evening class, but it's still challenging when you're in the classroom or in meetings or teaching a big portion of your day. So to me, to bring in you to the classroom, and this is what you're doing day in and day out. This is your company, and what you do on a daily basis, not only for FIU and the program, the Global Strategic Communications Masters, but this is what you do day in and day out. So that being said, I feel that having brought this element, which is your workshop, and then they produce the content, and actually they write blogs, and this is something really, really interesting that, again, we continued honing and perfecting, because at the beginning you will see, like anything that you try new, it can, kind of feel, oh, let's tweak this and this, and, do certain tweaks. But anyway, where we have it right now, the way that it works is that you come into the classroom, you already know what you're talking about, and then on the same day that you finish your workshop, there are assigned topics that your team already came up with that they're going to rank, in Google, and it's right up the alley of the content marketing strategy that you design to promote the program. So they walk away from that specific workshop, which is a class, with the topic and the way that they're going to do it. Because it's not only writing for the sake of writing. You have to write with the structure of how content marketing works. So you give them the overview, and then you teach them, this is the way that you're going to research the topic. This is the way that you're going to structure the topic. So this is the other aspect that is interesting. Because now it's not only an assignment for the sake of an assignment. Now they're working simulating as if they're creatives working for an agency.
Correct.
So the outline gets passed to your team, and you approve the outline, and then they can start writing. Mm-hmm. So in the process of getting that blog or that article from the beginning where they're learning how to do it to getting it in publishable format, mm-hmm. you know, there's a few iterations that mm-hmm. go through, and this is I think one of the magics of this whole experience for them is that then they get assigned to work with one of your senior copywriters, mm-hmm. and these students understand what it is to, again, be supervised mm-hmm. in their creative work. That is not creative work for the sake of, that's beautiful, what a beautiful piece. No, mm-hmm. this is creative work which is meant to brand something. Mm-hmm. So they're writing with a purpose, mm-hmm. Or they're creating with a purpose. There's another aspect, you know, of this assignment, which is, you know, they have to create ebooks. Mm-hmm. Now, the copywriting, remember, in the classroom, I have copywriters and I have art directors. Mm-hmm. So their functions are different. Now, and now we're going to get a little bit more, you know, strategies and so forth. But, you know, what happens is that the art directors sometimes are not strong copywriters. Mm-hmm. The copywriters are good writing, but mm-hmm. the you know, they always need improvement. But the art directors, they kind of maybe struggle with the assignment. Mm-hmm. But what happens is that then we give them another assignment, which is creating an ebook. Mm-hmm. And that ebook is basically going to feed a value proposition of a Facebook campaign that we run, correct. You know, to basically promote the program. Mm-hmm. And so that ebook, you know, is also written from the perspective of, let's give them a topic like, you put yourself in the shoes of a creative, because mm-hmm. now you're the creative, but you're basically, you have an audience. Mm-hmm. The audience is who you used to be, mm-hmm. you know, a while back ago. Mm-hmm. So put yourself in their shoes. What would you download? Mm-hmm. You know, if you see a Facebook ad, because obviously if you click on it and you say, okay, so that ebook is about how to get a great job mm-hmm. in the creative field, mm-hmm. obviously you're going to click on it and download it because you want to know how to get a great job. And by the way, that's one of our ebooks, yeah. right? So, and by the way, that ebook, the topics that are covered in that ebook is a class that they take at Miami Ad School called Get a Job, mm-hmm. you know? So it's like, okay, you're taking the class anyway. Yeah. So all that content that you're learning in the class of how to market yourself, put it in an ebook that mm-hmm. is going to be part of our content, but you're learning how does, you mm-hmm. know, remarketing mm-hmm. works, Facebook marketing mm-hmm. works. So you click on on that particular ad, you download the ebook, and what happens? You got to give us your email address, yeah. in order to get the ebook. Yeah. So now we're creating a database, mm-hmm. you know, of interested or creative folks that mm-hmm. liked, mm-hmm. you know, the ebook and the topic, and we can create a remarketing mm-hmm. campaign where every 2 weeks or 6 months, mm-hmm. you're going to get an email from us to, again, mm-hmm. retrofeed, mm-hmm. you know, getting leads and yeah. so forth. But I guess the whole takeaway, because we've given away the content marketing that we're doing, but mm-hmm. the whole takeaway of this is that not only are you fulfilling a portion of the contract of mm-hmm. our partnership, you mm-hmm. know, you're fulfilling that contractual part of content marketing. It's not all that we do, mm-hmm. Or that you do for us, mm-hmm. but you're teaching the students how it works. Mm-hmm. And they're part of the process. They're part of the creation process. Mm-hmm. And to me, if you're going to put a price to that, that's invaluable. Yeah. Because, again, you're now responding and being supervised mm-hmm. by an agency. Mm-hmm. You know, so now you understand that there's deadlines for deliverables. Mm-hmm. Your work is not another assignment. It has to meet certain standards, mm-hmm. you know, and so forth. So the last thing, and then I'll let you, you know, mm-hmm. Start wrapping the interview up. But, you know, the one thing that I want to say about the program is that again, and maybe we can get into talking about academia and so forth, but the program, you take classes at FIU, and then you take classes at our partner school, which is Miami Ad School. At FIU, you take all the courses that are more theoretical in nature, research, theory. Again, you're getting a Master's of Science. So, and I call our creatives, our graduates, creators on steroids, because you graduate knowing a little bit more what the back end of good creative work, how does it work? Why does an ad or a commercial resonates so much with an audience? Because there's a process that went behind it that had to do with research and understanding an audience and, you know, having a strategy and knowing what's a good creative brief, how do you develop a good creative brief. So that's what you do at Miami at FIU. And you culminate with a thesis, which is an area of communications that you feel there's a gap, that you want to research a little bit more. A regular creative doesn't get into that level of academic work, but because you're getting a master's degree, you have to, you know, you step into that. So we stretch them, you know, we literally stretch them continually. But what happens is on the Miami Ad School side, that's where you get the hands-on, practical aspect of the field. And not only that, the way that Miami Ad School is structured, they have a person that is devoted 100% to getting them internship in the top agencies or companies, or getting them jobs, you know, because agencies and companies, when they need creatives, they come to Miami Ad School to recruit. So I think this is the best of both worlds, but again, you know, the way that this whole puzzle fits, how Optimum 7 and what we have created in this, you know, involving the students in the content marketing, you know, creation, fits perfectly into the whole program.
Correct.
Because it's learning by doing.
Yeah. And we give feedback to students. We're saying, you know, if we see an outline or an article, we say, well, you're just doing classwork right now. Now go back and do it the way that you should be doing it if you were working for an agency or if you were working for an actual company, or if you actually had a specific client that you were executing this for. And for us, it's very clear the difference between a class assignment or the difference between an execution plan that you create for a client, but the students really might not know that difference. So it's all about communicating that difference. And then I would like to talk a little bit about scalability. So as we do this, we realize different things. We realize what the other institutions, the higher educational institutions are missing. And we're thinking, how can we scale this not only to a specific program, such as the one that Grizelle is managing, but how can we help other instructors, other companies duplicate the same thing we've been able to do it here. It has been done for years by attorneys, you know, students at law school. It's being done right now with medical students who have residencies at hospitals, right? This is exactly what we're doing, but it has never been done at the classroom level or at the higher educational level for different programs. Like if you're a back-end or a front-end developer, why don't you get an actual client project and execute and know how to plan the structure of that software, of that code? Similar thing for the creatives or anybody that's studying marketing. Not really just learn the basics of marketing, but also know the execution and why you are doing that marketing. So we're creating this outline that we're going to put out there along with this video and the article that we created that describes the program, so that other instructors, other professors, other directors, other institutions can grab the same execution and execute it for their specific programs, partnering with companies who are doing this in real life. And I think that's where really the value is, and that brings us to the question of higher education. And I have a lot of friends who have kids who say, I am not going to send my kids to college because it has no value. Because by the time you graduate, everything you've learned is already obsolete. I'd rather give them to another company, or in my company or another company to work for and learn the real life of things, you know. And then you have a program, you spend $100,000, $200,000, and after 4 years you graduate with all the student debt, and you get a job for $50,000, $60,000. It's not a great value proposition. Then we're saying, how can we make higher education real-time education and actually have value? What do you think?
No, absolutely. And you know, there's different schools of thought.
Yeah.
Like I get asked, you know, is doing a master's worth the money?
Mm-hmm.
You know, should I go do a master, first work, and then come back and do a master's degree?
Mm-hmm.
So I get so many different questions.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I answer the question, not like a cop-out, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's so personal.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I did my master's right after college.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my master's because to me it was always a natural progression
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted to know more. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to basically elevate my game to the best of my abilities,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even think about it twice. So that was my immediate, you know, life plan, which
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole different
Mm-hmm.
subject. Just like you do with a brand,
Yeah.
or you do with a client,
Yeah.
you need to have a life plan.
Correct.
You know, but that's another subject for another time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, the way that I answer that question is like sometimes, yeah, you're all right. You know, sometimes, you know, after 4 years worth of work, things change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you can learn however you learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people are great self-learners. I think that the combination of having a degree and the self-learning, because
Mm-hmm.
what do we teach students besides the knowledge and having the opportunity? And by the way, I don't think I'm biased talking
Mm-hmm.
about this program,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's truly the best of the academic world
Yep.
and the real world. Why? Because, you know, I know from the creative end of
Mm-hmm.
this industry, you know, anyone that comes with a Miami Ad School seal of approval,
Mm-hmm.
companies know, agencies know, those graduates know their stuff. Because
But think about how much effort that took on your part. Because I want to touch on this as well, because you are a different kind of educator, and I've met a lot of educators. Think about how much effort, hours and hours of you and I discussing this program, hours of workshop, hours of saying, okay, this is not going to work, let's do this, days and weeks of tweaking the program. And this is what we're saying. We're basically, or I'm saying, higher education needs to be this. It cannot be just a specific program that you execute without any growth plans, or without the kind of attention that it's going to require as you move with the technology. And maybe I'm more biased to the other side of non-education because we're in technology. And I see all these kids graduating and coming to us for development or marketing, and they come to us after college and they don't know anything. So how do you think we can instruct other, or how do you think we can educate, I know that's a terrible choice of words, other educators, so that they see the value of this to make higher education really valuable again?
Well, I wish that, you know, more educators would be watching this video, because I think that you do have to have, you know, there's something that I said at the beginning of this interview that was, you either do it to the best of your ability or pack it up and go do something else.
Yeah.
And every single job that I've had in the field and now in academia, you know, I take the same approach. Again, that comes with having the right mindset and being a professional and so forth. So to me, and as you very well said, you know, this takes work.
Yeah.
And it takes effort. And again, I said another thing, you know, during this interview is that you find two different types of professors, and both of them are needed.
Yeah.
You find the ones that are very academic and doing all the publishing, and then you find the professionals that, you know, like me. But when you blend those two effectively, that's where you find the magic, and you find students and graduates that know where they want to go in life. And, you know, it could be to the granular level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give you an example. Doesn't have to do necessarily with the topic, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just an illustration. You know, I apply as a professor, I apply consequence
Mm-hmm.
to every action in the classroom. Meaning that if you come in late to my class or you don't come with and in the syllabus, and I tell them this is a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because everything that they're paying for has to have, you know, an application
Mm-hmm.
to their future.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell them, you know, we have a contract. That contract is called a syllabus.
Mm-hmm.
I have literally 16 weeks, which is what a semester is long,
Mm-hmm.
16 weeks to influence you to become a better professional.
Yep.
Because you know what, and this is what I tell them along the way, you know, if you go to a job and you're late in your deliverables,
Mm-hmm.
or you're late for a meeting, or you're absent on a day that you needed to be there, it's not going to be a point deduction
Mm-hmm.
or a lower grade. You lose your job.
Correct.
So I think that, you know, again, bringing what we were discussing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what we are doing as educators is we're preparing the workforce.
Yep.
And if we're not preparing that workforce, and again, you cannot influence every college at the professor level is
Mm-hmm.
where the thing happens, because it's in the classroom, in that classroom. I wish that every professor had the same spirit on
Mm-hmm.
staying up to date with
Mm-hmm.
the things that are happening. And let me tell you, I mean, and I say this very humbly,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the day that you understand that you don't know it all, and that, you know, learning is a continual process,
Mm-hmm.
it's the day that you're onto something.
Correct.
And again, you know it better because you're in the digital space.
Yep.
You know, I don't live and breathe what you live every day. So
Mm-hmm.
God knows what goes through your head every day.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there goes Google changing the algorithm
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Now we have to change the way we do things.
Yep.
You live it far more than I live it,
Yeah.
you know. But and this is why, you know, you're my go-to person for anything digital,
Yep.
because, you know, technically people like you keep me and us sharp,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is why, you know, it's so important to do it at the education level. And again, going about, you know, teaching, learning by doing type of mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You need both sides. You know, you need the theoretical side and certain thing of why were things this way, are things this way, and where are we going? So you can start developing a pattern
Mm-hmm.
that maybe allows you to predict a little bit
Mm-hmm.
where the future is going. That's where theory, you know, and learning theory goes. But on the other hand, you know, if you're not taking that theory and making a student, particularly the type of student that we have, which is the creatives, they're
Mm-hmm.
right-brainers.
Yeah.
You know, what we're doing is we're basically those of them that have a right side far more developed than the left side,
Mm-hmm.
we're pulling them across the border. Like, you need to play on this playground too.
Yeah.
The ones that are too analytical, but they're not creative, it's like, listen, you're talking to an audience.
Mm-hmm.
And an audience, yeah, you can give them data, but at the end of the day, you have to make them feel something so that they feel the need to a call to action,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to react.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care how technical or how digital or how anything, we're still dealing with human beings.
Correct.
At the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to your question, you know, is that you need to basically make that student understand
Mm-hmm.
that whatever they're investing in, you know, is going to have an application
Mm-hmm.
when they step and they get their diplomas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, and the way that I tell students is that, you know, we're going to do our best to teach you and pour ourselves into you, but the other 50% is all you.
Correct.
So this is a partnership with you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do our part to the best of our abilities.
Mm-hmm.
But the other 50% is the effort that you put in, the work that you produce,
Mm-hmm.
and how well do you apply what you learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, if you approach the academic world with that mindset, I think that we can be very effective. If you don't, we'll become dinosaurs.
Correct. And that's the exact same thing that we want to scale. We've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now. So we have the data, we have the execution, we have the plan, we know what works and what doesn't work. The first thing is we could scale this for with other educational institutions and give professors, directors of programs, this outline that we created that will be available. We're not going to charge for this. We want to just have everybody learn about this. And then the second thing is, again, how can we scale to different, not only creative or marketing or technology, but how can we scale to different different programs? You know, how about accounting? And if you're studying accounting, maybe you're trying to be a CFO, a chief financial officer. Are you just looking at the books, or are you looking at the actual metrics that make or break a business? The same thing with coding. Are you just writing code, or do you know the technology behind it? And can you structure code and plan code? And, you know, take it and apply to any other program or any other profession. So this is the reason that we created this, and we would like all of your feedback, and we're looking for feedback, and we're looking for a way to scale this because we truly believe that it has value. Any last words?
No, absolutely. And I think that, you know, again, in my many hats, you know, I have talked about being a professor and executing what we have created. I'm talking also as director of a program in need of marketing. Correct. To basically making it grow. So I've basically have approached this conversation from different points of view. I think that the ultimate, if you are a business owner and you're looking to make a difference in your bottom line, it obviously it takes understanding, you know, because I think you can, you know, probably see this more than I do. But one of the things, when you understand marketing and you understand the digital space, you know that content marketing is not, you know, immediate. You have to be patient. You have to be an obedient, you know, client. But that obedience, that faith that you're paying a company, but you're not seeing the sales funnel, you know, get jam-packed immediately, it takes trust. It takes, you know, like faith is. That's the basis of faith. Is trust that, you know, the results are eventually going to come. So when you look at it, you know, and again, I've approached the topic from the education end, but also on the client end, it takes trusting, you know, a company just like yours, putting your budget, you know, with a vendor that you trust. And again, and perhaps this is a good endorsement for Optimum 7, you know, you guys have full trust. Why? Because I know that you're coming to the classroom to do what we created. You know, this came out of our heads in months of conversation, probably years. But also because I'm seeing the results. I'm seeing that sales funnel, those inquiries. Now, you know, when you're talking about creating a lead in my world, that lead can be an inquiry, but whether that student basically qualifies, they have the GPA, and now, you know, I'm having an issue with international students that their visas are getting rejected. Correct. If they're from different parts of the world, you know, but that's beyond our control. Again, your job is to create the lead, and then you pass it to me, and then I do my job. You know, I thank you for everything you're doing. And again, being, because you're living this on a daily basis, you know, keeping me and my team abreast of what's the newest trend. Why don't we write, and this is something that I go with your team as well, why don't we start writing articles this way? Because this is the trend. Or why don't we do this differently? You know, and again, you know, because again, it's a relationship of trust, and because you see the results, you start, you know, basically saying, okay, let's try it that way and see what happens.
Yeah, and that's usually what it takes. A deal is only a good deal if it's good for all sides. So this has to have value for the professional, this has to have value for the educational institution, and most importantly, create a deal for your students so that they get the most out of that education. Thank you.
Thank you.